Hello, my name is Caitlin Lemieux, and this is my culturally relevant inspired product presentation. I chose to do my product on class quilts. This activity integrates the strategies of differentiation, both in engagement methods and the differentiation of curriculum for students, and involves the strategy of interest groups. The setting of my product would be a third grade classroom where students are aged 8 to 9. Students are of diverse backgrounds and of mixed ability, including regular education students, ESOL students, and gifted students. The activity would take place at the beginning of the year as a getting to know you activity within the subject of English language arts. The concept of the classroom quilt activity would involve each student individually designing a square to be integrated into the collaborative product or classroom quilts. Each square depicts a representation of the student's identity. These squares would be individualized, unique, and created based upon students' interests and skills. Students would engage in the creation of their product in one of the 4 interest groups, and they would be able to select which group they would like to complete their work in. These groups are digital, language, collage, and visual arts. There are 3 Georgia Standards of Excellence, which will be integrated into this lesson. They are focused upon speaking and listening. Here are the 4 Georgia Standards of Excellence strategies. They just involve reporting on a topic, telling a story using relevant detail, using audio recordings to demonstrate fluid reading and understandable pace, and speaking in complete sentences when completing an appropriate task. Gifted programming standards were also integrated into this activity. They are focused on self-understanding, primarily upon how the student learns and recognizing their influence of their identities, culture, and beliefs, traditions and values on their learning and behavior as an individual. Students will also be able to grow in personal competence. This involved dispositions for exceptional academic and creative productivity. It also involves students working in self-awareness, self-advocacy, self-efficacy, confidence, motivation, resilience, independence, curiosity, and risk-taking, as well as students will practice cultural competence. As students identified as gifted will be able to value their own and others' language, heritage, and circumstance. This is how the standards relate to the class quilt activity. As you can see, the 3 standards from the Georgia Standards of Excellence in English Language Arts relates directly to the audio description of the product that the student will be completing in their summative assessment at the end of this activity. And the 3 gifted programming standards represented here will be addressed in the interest-based identity product, which is the quilt square. Step 1 of this activity involves students engaging in selected interest groups. These are the 4 interest groups I mentioned previously. Each group has corresponding materials provided. For the digital group, students will be completing their square utilizing online software for creating a digital composition that represents their identity. This can be a collage, this can be a digital piece of art that they used a picture of themselves to complete. And they will be provided with computers and printers to do so. The language group will have students creating a poem, paragraph, or any other written language product for their square to express their identity. As you can see here, the examples are I am poems, a poem where they spell out their name, and any other written language format that they would like to express their identity using. They'll be provided scrapbooking paper, printer paper, pencils, and pens to do so. The collage group will use different clippings to create a mixed media collage representing their identity for their square. They'll be provided magazines, newspapers, scissors, and glue. As you can see in these examples, students will be able to take these clippings and form a piece of art or just a composition that illustrates their identity. And finally, the visual art group, students will draw, sketch, or paint a piece of artwork representing their identity. Students will be provided with paper, crayons, colored pencils, markers, and watercolors. I was able to include some self-portraits that I was able to find of students where they take an image that they created of themselves and they integrate their different interests and different parts of their identity. As you can see through the music in the woman with the glasses picture, as well as the Minecraft shirt in the boy at the bottom's picture. Step 2 would involve students creating a summative assessment using audio. Students will submit a file, which is 2 to 3 minutes of audio describing their square in detail, really telling the story of their work using relevant facts and details in order to address those English language arts standards that I mentioned at the beginning. As far as cultural relevance, there are a few aspects that I wanted to hit on just to express the cultural relevance of the class quilt assignment. Interest groups are integrated as students are given the opportunity to select a group for their final product. This gives high ability students the opportunity to engage in their domain, promoting active engagement. So students are interested in what they're doing and they're forming relevant connections because it is something that they care about. Students are also encouraged to depict aspects of their identity using imagery or words that are interesting and relevant to them. Differentiation is included within this activity. Different domains are represented in each group, each of the interest group I mentioned. Students are prompted to create a final product, which is their quilt square, which represents their diverse identities in the manner of their choosing. They're grouped based on interest, so students have the ability to communicate with one another or work independently on their final product. Multiple criteria is also utilized in the assessment portion of this activity, as students will be assessed using their quilt square as well as their audio recording that they submitted, providing opportunities for students to be successful in their diverse areas of talent. So maybe a student is really good with words and is really good with explaining themselves, but not the greatest at composing pieces that are aesthetically pleasing. This gives them an opportunity to engage in assessments that allow them to be successful. The use of audio is also a component of assessment, primarily for the ESOL population, as they can draft their response, practice accordingly, and read when necessary, engaging in each of the different literary domains, so speaking, reading, writing, listening. Celebration of diversity is also included in this activity, as students are completing their squares that represent their unique identity, attributes, cultures, and abilities, where they're able to form a visual of the fact that they are a component of what makes their class so strong and what makes their class so diverse and rich, in their square being a part of the larger class quilt. My inspiration for this project came from 4 of the classroom articles that we read in this semester, as well as Danielle's presentation on interest centers. I was able to kind of form some good strategies based on her presentation. The first article is Differentiated Curriculum, where the author focuses on how gifted curriculum should integrate cultural content, meeting students' unique needs through differentiated curriculum. The second article I read was Learning to Love by Carol Ann Thompson, or Learning to Love Assessments, by Carol Ann Thompson, where she states that her first understanding about assessment is that they are not always just about tests. Students are more engaged when they are provided multiple ways to express their learning. I also utilized Approaches to Multicultural Curriculum Reform by James A. Banks, where he stated that the additive approach to curriculum is integrating ethnic content into the curriculum without completely reconstructing it. So adding these activities where students can celebrate their own diversity and their own culture into curriculum promotes engagement. Invitations to Learn by Carol Ann Thompson features the author's perspective that to feel invited into the classroom, students must feel that their interests and perspectives are acknowledged. And then, as I mentioned, Danielle's Be the Expert presentation on interest centers. Here are my references. Thank you so much.